me get my recording. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just going to start again because I just started recording it. Okay, so we're going to go into our payroll. We're going to go into the control table, and then we're going to go into payroll controls. All right. So the first item we're going to do is whenever the HR has rolled over their year, as far as created all their demographics for 18-19, what you want to do is you want to change this 17-18 date to 18-19. And this is the HR link because quite a few of our clients have the two databases linked where certain data is changed on one side, it automatically changes on the other. So that's the one thing you're doing there. All right, the second item is if you go into payroll control 2, you're going to do the same thing with the budget year. Okay, now with this, when you're all done with your payrolls for 17-18, physically running the payrolls, okay, then you would change this to 2018-2019 because you're all done running your payrolls for the month of June. So what this is going to do now when I change this year to 18-19, it's going to look at all my appropriation accounts in 2018-2019. So that's when you're all done running all your payrolls for June. Okay, then you would go in and switch this. The first screen, you want to wait till HR builds it. They usually build it towards the end of June, but whenever they build it, you would be able, you change this year so you're linked up to the new 18-19 year. Okay, there isn't that much. There's just a few more things we're going to go over with that. On the maintenance screen, okay, these are the things that have been done, in the past few years. Item 4, the mass update voluntary deductions. I know in the past few years there's been change with pension percents, pension and contrib. So what you want to do is you want to go into update deductions, and this is what will give you the ability, as an example, a pension. Okay, whether it's an amount or a percent, it's still the same. So if our pension percent changed, we put in the old pension percent, the new pension percent, and we would do an execute, and it will go out and do any employee that's in deduction pension PERS. If they're paying the old percentage, it'll change it to the new percentage. And also, if you had contributory insurance, the TPAF employees. So this is something you might be doing as far as a end of year, start of year procedure for the payroll for the fiscal year. Okay, and also you go into the update deduction healthcare copay. You want to make sure you come in here and change the fiscal year in the health copay update program, healthcare copay update program. So you want to come in here and also change this to 2018-19, which I haven't done the rollover in HR. So, and this is how it would know the health plans and all the other information that's there for that particular employee. Okay, and I think that covers it for the payroll. Okay, so there isn't that much on the payroll, and again, we'll recap this on in June. This way, it'll give us a follow-up on it. Okay, so that would be our payroll system. And the payroll and the HR, there's really not that much that has to be done. The accounting system is the one that has quite a bit. Okay, let's go into human resource. Okay, and in the human resource, there's really no link or anything in the control file. Okay, so you don't have to worry about any of that. Basically, with the HR, you go to your rollover procedure, which is the fifth one down, and we'll go all over the rollover. We'll go over this. Okay, now the first one is the actual rollover employees, which is the very first one, rollover. Okay, what this does is this rolls over all your demographic information. Okay, so it'll do the address, the name, anything other than dealing with attendance. Okay, to roll over all your leave information, your education information. So all the detailed data would get rolled over, and you have an option whether you want, if you're using any of these options, if you want to clear it. We have an internet policy date, a contract return date, a temp replacement date, rollover terminated employees. We do have some clients that what they'll do is anybody that was terminated on the last day of June, they want to roll over in case the person needs to get paid or some kind of scenario. So if you say yes, it says, okay, when the termination date, it defaults to June 30th. So anybody that was terminated in June 30, they carry it forward. Okay. If you don't want to roll over terminate, just leave it to no, and regardless of what termination date, they won't be rolled over. And the rollover, that's exactly what it does. It rolls over any employees that don't have a termination date. Because if you wanted to look up those employees, the HR already has a multi-find by, the same as the payroll, so you'd be able to do that. Okay, and all you would do here is just hit your execute, it'll tell you if you're sure, okay, and it would roll over all the demographics. Okay, now this can be done before any attendance information is rolled over. Okay, because attendance, it might take you a week into July to get all your attendance posted to the HR. You can do the rollover on June 30th, okay, and that's it. Then you'll come back, like after you're all done with entering the attendance information, you can come back to this screen and continue with the other items that we're going to go over. Okay, so when we come back, if you do it separate, we have our balance maintenance. And what this does is it rolls over any of our deductions that have balances that you specify as yes, you want to carry forward. Okay, so if we start at the top, it asks you, do you want to run it by calendar group, staff group, user alpha? We have a user alpha field that you could use. Okay, so when you make a selection by calendar, it'll say, okay, I want to, let's say I wanted to do just my 10-monthers. You could specify the groups that you want to roll over the attendance for, or you could just do everybody if the criteria is the same for all the employees, regardless of what staff group. Okay, which is normally not true because the teachers don't have any vacation days, but it doesn't matter. You just leave that at no, that particular one. Okay, and what you would do here is you would scroll down to anything that you allow to roll over. As an example, I go down to personal. I'll say yes. Okay, this is personal additional, which let's say I say yes to that one too. And I can go down to sick and I'll say yes. Okay, so you could say yes to whatever you want to carry. If there's no balance there, it's not going to carry over anything. If there's a balance and I check it as yes, it will carry over a balance. Okay. Now, some of the things that they'll do is some of the districts will do is they'll take any unpaid personal days and they'll switch them over to sick next year. So any unused personal days, they convert to sick the following year. So the way that's done is to the right of the next year attendance type, you can change that. You could say, okay, I want to convert it to sick for next year. And the same thing with the additional. Let's say we have the same thing and we select sick. Okay, so what this will do is any unused personal days will be sick next year. Will get converted to sick. And you can also set a limitation. What'll happen is some districts will say, well, you'll get 4 personal days, but you're only allowed to carry over 2 days. Okay, so that'll actually control how many days get rolled over, regardless of how many you have left. Okay, and that's your max days to carry over. Down at the bottom controls any limitations on what gets carried over. Okay, as an example, we have our attendance types, we have our maximum carryover current year, okay, and then we have our maximum carryover total. The current year would reflect what you have left on the current year, and the maximum total carryover, the prior and the current, will actually take both of the categories on the attendance screen, not just the current category. And I'll just bounce in there so you get a better idea of, okay, we're going to go into the database. And if we go into attendance, we'll have a prior year carryover and a current year carryover. Okay, so that's what it's referring to. And again, HR, we do have the multi-year find by. Go back to the balances. So this is what the bottom is referring to. What's the maximum carryover for the current year? What's the maximum total carryover for both of them? If you put a limit on how many possible sick days you can carry forward. Okay, and once you set up your category, you hit execute. I know we were talking about a project for this for June, for the end of July. I don't know if it'll get to do that. We'll try our best to get it implemented. It's more or less, instead of having to do one category at a time, like if we were doing calendar group, we got to do the 10 months first, and then we got to answer all the questions due to run, and then do the 12 months after that. Instead of having to go through 2 steps. Come on, I got to switch it to that. And then going through the second one. We're thinking about having multiple controls where you set up all the controls initially, like you'll have a control screen for the 12-monthers, another control screen for the 10-monthers. Basically that instead of defining this only one time, we can save each of the various types to make your life easier. You don't have to do one by one. But again, we'll try to get it done by July or the end of June, but I know we have quite a lot of other projects that we're working on. Okay, so that would be your first step. And again, you don't do this until all your attendance is in and everything has been checked. Okay, the next item down is to create opening attendance days. And this is what you're issuing the employees for that year. Let's say that they get 4 personal days. And I don't have any attendance types down here. My calendar group. Maybe I gotta put one in here. I don't know why. Oh, this is 18-19. I'm sorry. This is actually the following year, so it would do it automatically for you. Do it all in 17-18. Okay, but I'm just gonna go back 1 year in the HR so you can actually see how it works. Because remember, you've already done the rollover, so I haven't done the rollover, so my 18-19 year hasn't been created yet. So if I go here, I'll be able to see my types. Because your first step will be to roll over, then you do your attendance, and I hadn't physically done the rollover myself. Okay, and again, this is similar to the previous one. You could do calendar group, staff group, or user fields. So if I do calendar group, I could just click on there and say, let's say I'm doing the 12-monthers. And basically all you would do here is it automatically defaults to update. You could just leave it, because what happens if it's a 0, it's not going to put anything in there. So let's say that we get 4 personal days. I put in a 4. Okay, and let's say vacation day or sick days. So I get 8 sick days. And if it's 12-month and all the 12-monthers or the majority of them get the same vacation, you can say 10 days for vacation. So you really don't have to worry about these flex, because if you don't put in a dollar amount, it's not going to do anything anyway. Okay, it's not going to post, it'll post 0, whatever was there. And here you can set up a maximum. My carryover days plus these days, you can put a limit on it. And usually they do that for like sick days, where they want to limit how many you accumulate. So you can only accumulate 200. So even though your total prior and your total current is more than 200, you could stop this at actual 200. Okay, and you would hit your execute. Again, for each of the groups, because with the 10-monthers, they don't have vacations, so you can handle that separately. Okay, and again, if we have time, we'll do the same thing here, but, so far it looks like we got a whole bunch of things we already have on our plate for this year. So as far as setting up multiple parameters on these. Okay, gonna hit my return and get out of that one. Persia year, you don't want to do, because this was set up years ago where the disk capacity was very small. So they would keep maybe 4 or 5 years, then back it up, and then actually purge a year. But in this day and age, with the hardware, you have tons of disk space, so it doesn't present a problem. So we stay away from that one. The update vacation by years of service. And again, if we go to the upper right hand corner, upper left hand corner, it's the same thing. You can select what criteria you want to run, and you can do it by, again, calendar group, staff group. Okay, you can do the same thing with staff groups. So if you have anything out there, long-term subs, then we don't want to do that. Does it? Okay, let's go back to calendar group. It's a little bit easier. 12, 10 monthers. Okay, so you would specify the criteria that you want to update. It would do you can just leave it at overwrite. You never want to add to existing, so that defaults to overwrite. Then it wants to know what date do you want to calculate the year for? We have our date of hire, current position, or district experience if you want to use district experience. And this is an exclusion date, so if you were hired after that date, it will not give you the vacation, for that, okay. And what you would do is the attendance type that you want to apply. Normally, it's the vacation days. And what you would do here, you would put a start year and an end year. So let's say if you're here from 1 to 5 years, you get 10 vacation days. If you're here 6 to 10 years, okay, you get 15 vacation days. So what you're doing is you're basically setting up the parameters. If you're here at least 1 year through 5, you get 10. If you're here at least 6 years through 10, you get 15, and so forth, if you need to follow down. If you need more than the 5 slots, the scroll bars on both of these will activate, where you'll be able to scroll down, and you would press your execute, and that would take care of that'll take care of the criteria for those employees and determine what bracket they fit in. Even if it doesn't apply to all your employees, at least this will do a high percentage. Then you go in there and do it manually, because a lot of times there are exceptions, like administrators follow different criteria depending on what your position is. So you do whatever you can here to do the bulk of your employees. Then you go to the attendance screen, and it can be changed. The attendance screen can be changed manually at any time. So if you go to the attendance screen and you change the available vacation days for the current year, it lets you do it right on there. And that's what most of our clients do, with the exceptions. Okay, so this is updating the vacation with years of service. This is the previous one. I'm sorry, I went to one back. But creating the opening entries, the vacation days, if it applies to everybody, like all 12 monthers gets X amount of vacation days, then you could use this part. You don't have to use the years of experience. The last item that we have that's optional. What this is for is if you have a bargaining unit that hasn't settled their contract as of June 30th, and you're going to continue paying the employees the same dollar amount for the 18-19 fiscal year, instead of working on all the guides and everything, you can run this, okay? And it does come up with a message. If the employee already has a salary, it doesn't do anything. So let's say that 50% of your employees have contracts, and the other 50% did not settle yet, and you just want to continue paying them the exact amount until they settle. This will not harm any of the ones that have a salary, but for the employees that don't have a salary in HR for 18-19, it will roll the salary over, and it will also roll the guide if the guide isn't in the control file for 18-19 for that particular that particular guide. Okay, so this is optional. Just if you don't, if all your employees had settled, then you just ignore this. You don't need to do it. But if you ran it by accident, it's not going to hurt anything, because if everybody has a salary, it's not going to do anything. So, okay, and I don't know if this, I don't even, yeah, it goes to another screen with just the 2 years, 16, 17 into 17, 18. So, because I went back and logged back a year. Okay, and this is really it for the HR. The criteria here is really all part of the end of fiscal year process for HR. Okay, other than the salary and all the other stuff. So, okay, now that takes care of our HR. Okay, now we go to the accounting. The accounting is a big one because there's a lot of different things that get done on the accounting system. Okay, so we're going to go in. We're going to go into the current year. Okay, and we'll go over the items in the control file. Some you don't do till after you do the rollover. Some you may want to do before you do the rollover. So I'll just review it with you. Okay, control table. Okay, if we go into the control table and on the left-hand side under control area, okay, we have a current year. It's on the left-hand side. Okay, and you may want to change this before you do the rollover. It all depends on when you're going to give your employees access, all your employees that access the accounting, access to that physical year. Okay, as an example, when we go into the system right now, it automatically defaults to the current year. Oops, sorry, I didn't go back far enough. And I don't think we built next year yet. We'll find out. Yes, we did. Okay, so right now it defaults to the current year. Okay, let's say we're done with, having all the employees make changes. As administrators, we're now going to start closing the year, and we don't want anybody adding requisitions or anything else. Well, what you do is once you change that control file, sorry, if you go into the control file and you change it to 1718, I'm sorry, 1819, 1819. Okay, from that point forward, the year is going to prompt for 1819. It'll default to the 1819, and there's ability to block the employees from accessing the previous years at that particular point. So we don't have it. So that sets up the default. Okay, so some do it, when I think they start doing it around the middle of May, the end of May, when they want all their various departments to start adding requisitions for the following year. So they'll switch that where they don't want any more changes in the current year, and they bounce them over to next year. Okay, so we're going to go back to the control file. So that's one of the items that it's really up to the district when they physically change that. Do you change it before you do all your rollovers and stuff? And they usually do. Once they want to get everybody out of the 17-18 year, they open up next year and they go from there. Okay. The other options that we're going to review is as far as the rolling over of the outstanding orders. And we do have some documentation, start of year and end of year procedure on the accounting. We have some documentations, and we'll fine tune it this year. So come the end of June, if you want a fresh copy, by all means, you can just email us or call us at our office. And you want to see how this is set in your control file. There's actually two settings: all liabilities without marking. Liabilities must be marked. Okay. Basically, what that's saying is when I do the rollover, I want everything to go roll over as a liability. That's what the all liabilities without marking. If you change your setting to liabilities must be marked, Any purchase orders that aren't marked as a liability will roll over as a re-enter. Okay. A re-enter gets charged to the same account next year. An adjustment is made to the adjusted appropriation to increase the budget for next year. A liability is basically a liability. It gets thrown into our all nines liability account, and it only affects balance sheet accounts. It doesn't affect the current year's budget for 18-19. So you want to look at that first to determine what you want to do. Okay, the liability, this is your default liability account. So whatever you want as your physical default, okay, when you mark the PO as a liability, it can be changed at that level, which we'll go over. We'll go over in a few minutes. Okay, so that's on the main screen of the appropriation control area. That's under the master. Okay, there's nothing on this one. If we click over to payroll, this is where you're going to switch your information as far as your payroll tying into your payroll. At this point, the payroll year stays the same, so you'd leave that alone. You wouldn't touch it. But we do have a few districts that they use the same PO year after year. Most of our clients do put a prefix at the beginning or the end of the payroll purchase order that's used to actually post payroll to budget. Okay. So you would change this depending on what your new PO is going to be for the new year, the 18-19. The norm with this is PO number one is whatever your new one is as far as 2018, 2019. The second PO is the previous year's payroll PO if you're using a prefix on it. Okay. And again, all this part gets done in the 18-19 year. I'm just in 17-18 here, but these are things that get done in the new year, the 18-19 year. Okay, so this gets done in the 18-19 year. I'm sorry, I went too fast. Okay, as far as the first screen, you would do this as far as the year. You could do it in the new year. This would be your actual old year, so the 17-18, because this is controlling your 17-18 as far as the way your liabilities are marked and the balance sheet that you're going to use. Okay, we're going to get out of here. All right, that's really it for the control file as far as the liabilities. I'll go over the start of year separate, okay, because there are some parameters as far as setting up your new PO number and setting up your new I'm sorry, if you do non-budget, what do we call it? I forgot. Non-budget PO control and your invoice control. Okay, we'll go over that as far as the start of year. Okay. And if we go in the database right now, we're just going to bring a purchase order so you get an idea of what we're doing. Okay. And what you would do is, again, if you don't have to mark them, if you're rolling all your POs over as liabilities, you don't have to do this. But if you're saying liabilities have to be marked, then what you're going to do is you're going to go through all the POs that you want to make define as a liability. And we have a current liability status. What you're going to do is, I'm sorry, to the right, a roll as liability. This is how it was rolled if it was a multi-year rollover from one year to the second year. The roll liability, you would say yes to that. Let's say this is going to be a liability. It defaults to your control file settings, but you do have the ability to change it to whatever you want. Okay, so whatever balance sheet you want to use for that liability purchase order. Okay, so that's the big thing, to mark all your liabilities, put all your liabilities in place. Okay, and the reports that we're going to use for that, okay, if we go into the end of year, your primary one is your outstanding purchase order report. This is end of year outstanding PO report. And what this will do is this will break out the purchase orders and give you a liability total and a re-enter total. Okay. Which includes your payroll PO too. They're all considered POs. So if you want to carry over some monies in your payroll accounts to cover some summer school for next year, they're all considered. Anything that has a balance, that still has a balance, is considered an outstanding purchase order. So this is a report that you would run, and you can, run it, go back, make some other changes, use it as a check. And then when you're satisfied with all the orders and say, hey, we're done cutting checks, these are going to be all our purchase orders that we're going to roll over into next year. We have them marked, which one is a liability and which one is a re-enter. Okay. Then you're done with this process, and this gives you the ability to actually do the rolling over, roll open orders into next year. I'll go over this, but there's some other ones at the bottom that you may use. Okay, roll over open orders. Okay, and what you're going to do on this one is you're going to put the date in, and normally it's always July 1st of that particular year. Okay, the next two down is the roll payroll purchase order. The norm is that they compress this, so the PO gets compressed. If you're rolling over, 10 accounts, 10 payroll accounts into next year, you would just select the payroll PO. I think we have it here. Whatever the payroll PO happens to be. Okay, and you also have the ability of doing a second one. And in next year, instead of setting up 20 different purchase orders, one for each account, it combines it all as one. So you're able, when they go through payroll, when it gets paid through payroll, you just specify that one account, and it automatically gets charged that one payroll PO. Okay, if you don't, then you just leave this blank, and it'll create 20 different liability POs, but it'll have a prior year order that will have a different prior order. Okay, we only have the following thing is replace re-enter PO account. We have one district that does this. This is if you're keeping your re-enters in a separate account next year. Like they'll have an account for the current year, and then they'll have a second account for the re-enters from the prior year. They don't want to commingle it into one account. Normally, it all goes into one account. It shows as an adjustment. You're able to see what the adjustment description is. And by using this, it basically says, okay, in my division, okay, I'm going to have this particular code. You know what I mean? So what it does is it looks at a current year's account, and if the division equals 20, I'm sorry, that's the start position and the end position. Okay, and what it'll do is it'll replace it, whatever value it is, it'll replace it with 200 as an example. Okay, but again, we have one district, the rest of our districts don't use it. Down in the lower right-hand corner, the rollover program can be run multiple times. Okay, so let's say that we have these 3 or 4 POs or 10 POs that we want to pay. We're not ready to roll over everything, but we've checked these 10 orders. We really want to pay them. You can just select the POs that you want to roll over. Okay, so I could say I want to roll over purchase order number 3, number 4. Okay, and you can do the posting, and it'll take these 2 purchase orders and post them into 1819 as a liability. Okay, and again, you could do this as many times. So you could roll over ones that you need to pay. You could just specify the PO. It rolls over into 1819. Now they can go in there and invoice those purchase orders and be able to pay them. You don't have to wait till the end of the reconciling process with the outstanding orders. Again, you would hit your post, and it would do its thing. Once it's rolled over, then next time it'll ignore these because we already carried these forward. So again, you could do this as many times as you want, as far as individual ones, and then at the very end, you roll over everything at one time. Okay, keep track of your reports. We do keep track of, hitting the balance sheet account and all that other stuff. So, okay, and down at the bottom, these are just some utility, some programs you want to run before you do the rollover. As an example, we have a mass close payroll. I'm sorry, mass close PO with zero balance. You don't have to run this, but what it does is if the PO isn't closed, it's got to look at the encumbrance, accumulate the payment amounts, the payments, and then see if it has a balance. If you close all the zero POs, what happens is it just checks that flag. Oh, this PO is closed. It skips over. It doesn't have to add any of the payments because a closed PO will always have a zero balance. So it just makes the rollover run faster because it doesn't have to calculate the payments. Okay, the other item is also for mass closed payroll POs, and this is exactly what it says. Like if we go into this one, it has our POs that you want to close both the current year and the prior year one. And what it'll do is if there's any balances, it'll just close them all out. And again, this can be run before the rollover. You've got to do this before the rollover, of course, but this can be run anytime. Okay, they'll usually run it when they're all done posting the payrolls. They'll do a mass close of all the payroll POs, and then they'll just go back to those purchase orders and increase the balance if there are POs that they want to carry forward as far as payroll POs. Okay, we have our rollover program. We have our post fixed assets. If you have our fixed asset system, it'll post to the general ledger. Sorry, the trial balance. This is when you start getting into if you want to make an online journal, you can run an online journal, a trial balance report. This is something just for a couple of our districts that use our remote payroll system. Okay. What do we got? Okay, now we do have some documentation that we put out, and it's a step by step. Like these are the basic tools. But what it will tell you to do is to, print the reports before you roll over the POs. Okay, so you have all your secretary's reports and all your various hard copy reports before you start rolling over all the purchase orders. Because what happens is once you roll over all your POs, your encumbrance will change. Okay, there'll be no more outstanding because you're basically liabilities. It just cancels them in the current year, books them as a liability, and creates them in next year. And the same thing with the re-enter. Okay, with the re-enter, it actually cancels it in this year and reposts it in next year for you, putting the adjustment in the following year. Okay, so the booklet. It's step by step. Again, we'll go over this in June, all the various steps. And basically, when you're all done with your end of year, where you're closing out everything gone through all your steps for the end of year, there's a start of year procedure, okay, which is to build your opening entries. And what this will do is it'll take whatever the trial balance was for 17-18, and this is designed to work in this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you could do it right from here. You do your build opening entries. You could run this, and what it'll do is it'll take all your balance sheet information from the trial balance and create the new one for you in 18-19. Okay, you don't want to if you do any manual ones, this doesn't work. So you want to do this before any journal entries are done in 18-19. We have our prior year purchase order report, which is a nice tool because this can be run anytime during the course of the year. Okay, as an example, if I want to look at my 17-18 year, this isn't a liability as the default is liability. You could do re-enters all separately. I just want to show you what the report is. It'll give you a current status of your liabilities. So all the liabilities you brought forward from 16-17. This is actually looking at 17-18 still. And I don't have any. Sorry about that. But it does give you columns. It gives you the original amount that was carried forward from the prior year. Then it gives you an actual. So if there was a decrease or an increase to the liability purchase order, it'll show you that, what was expended, and what the balance is if it hasn't been fully paid yet. It'll give you the balance on the purchase order, the liability purchase order. So this can be run anytime during the course of the year, and it'll give you a current status. We have our online journals if you want to make a journal entry. After you did your build, if you wanted to apply manual journal entries. We have a trial balance. And the other thing is to actually do post all your payroll POs for the new year. Okay, this is important because you're actually setting it up for the 18-19 year. This physically creates all the payroll POs. It asks you what's your payroll PO number going to be, what's the date to post. These are always July 1st, 2018, and in our case, for our year. It asks you who your vendor is for the payroll POs, whether you want to encumber the full amount or you want to encumber it as zero. Okay, if you want to encumber whatever's in the budget, whatever's available in that budget account for 18-19, you leave it at yes. If you just want to encumber it as zero, and then as the payments get posted to the payroll liability PO, it increases the encumbrance at that particular point. And then it wants to know what category of the payroll, which is anything that you have. Like if you have payroll, hourly, salary, you basically select all three of them, because they're all really payroll accounts. So you just select all three accounts, and this will actually go to any account that you have identified as payroll. And I'm just going to bounce out there. So any account that you have identified as payroll on the screen. This is a test account that we have. No. Sorry. We have a test account that's out of sync. Okay, so any account that's identified as one of those three items, in our case we have the three different types, it'll create a PO for that particular payroll account, because that's what that's actually for, the actual start of year. Okay, because that's what we were doing when we were posting the payroll PO. And that does all the payroll accounts at one time. During the course of the year, if you create new payroll accounts, you can create the new payroll accounts, identify them as a payroll account, and you could come into this program and rerun it again, and it'll just add any missing purchase orders. It won't touch any orders that were already created, but it'll add any missing ones. So if it finds a payroll account that doesn't have a purchase order, it will automatically create it. So this can be run anytime during that fiscal year that you're working on. Okay, and the other thing is roll over any open invoices. Okay, and what that's from is, and we have a few districts that are using it. If we go in the database, we have our invoice billing system. Okay, this is where you're able to put in invoices, and let me see if we have, no, we don't have anything in this year. But these are actual invoices. So if you have invoice posted that haven't received any payments yet, okay, against those invoices, it'll roll forward into the following year. Okay, and again, there's a lot more in the booklet because it tells you print this, run that, change balance sheet account and liabilities. Okay, so that's the rollover. Okay, so that's really, this is everything we went over except that one item was really end of year procedure. Okay, we're going to go back into the accounting control table, and we're just going to go over stuff that's really start of year. Okay, like changing the fiscal year, that's start of year. The liability is not. That would be your 17-18 year. This you would do in 18-19. You log into 18-19 and change the current year to 18-19. The payroll PO, again, that's all start of year procedure that you would do. Okay, and under the requisition control area, that's where you would define your new payroll PO, your new PO prefix. So we have what your PO prefix and what the number of numbers it's going to have in the PO. So we got your budget PO control, and that's you're doing. Yes, the system is going to add. I don't think we have. I don't think we have any left that are still doing it manually. System assigned PO. What's the size of your prefix? Again, for 1819. What's the PO prefix for 1819? So it's true, you're defining how big it is and what it is. And then this would be how large of a number do you need? Okay, and what was the last PO number? And you would start this off as 0. Like if you were starting out the year, you would make the starting PO 0. Okay, so what would happen here is when it assigns the PO number, it's going to be 18 dash, the first one is an example, 18 dash 0001, because we said the number is going to be 4 digits. So the number is after the dash, so 18,000 with a 1, it would start off as. Okay, so this would be your PO control as far as what your purchase order number is going to look like. Underneath that, it's a non-budget PO parameters. Okay, not too many clients use a non-budget PO number. What the difference between a regular PO and a non-budget PO is a regular purchase order is charged to an appropriation account. A non-budget PO is charged to a balance sheet account. And that's basically used for anything that's going to be paid as a non-budget disbursement. Okay, some of our clients want a hard copy and they want to get it approved. Some clients just go in and do the non-budget disbursements without using the non-budget PO, which is fine with us, whichever way you want to do it. Okay, so this is the non-budget PO control. And then we also have invoice number control. And this is if you were doing our invoices. That was what we just went into when I went into the accounting database. Down at the bottom, we had our invoices. What's your invoice going to look like? Which is similar, it can be set up similar to a PO. I could say, okay, it's going to be 3 digits. Next year, it's going to be 19 dash 10. Okay, then whatever you want to use for a number, if you want to use 5 characters. Okay, and you could put something else. I could say that it's 19I for invoice, so they don't get confused with a purchase order. It's a different form altogether, but if you wanted to put an I for invoice, or if you just wanted to leave it at 19, that would be fine. You just have to determine this is the size of my prefix if I had the I in it. Okay, sorry for my voice being so hoarse, but it's been over an hour since I've been chit-chatting. And I believe that's it for me. And again, we'll go over a refresher in June. We'll send out the invite. We've been doing like the 3rd or the Tuesday before the last Tuesday. We've been usually scheduling towards the end of the month. So, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute everyone. Okay, so everyone is unmuted. I have no chats. Okay, and I think what do we have? We still have 17 out there. So, any questions at all from anybody? No?
Hi, Dan.
Okay, go ahead. No questions, or?
No, Dan, I have
you were
a question.
talking about the booklet. Where's the booklet?
Where's the booklet? You're talking about the start.
Yeah, you were saying it's the booklet.
Well, you might have it on your O drive. If you go to your O drive and look under documentations, I'm sorry, go to your O drive. Are you by your computer or no?
Yes, we're going right now.
Yeah, if you just go to your O drive. If not, we'll put it down there. That's what we've been doing in most of our district. We just put it right there so, we don't have to email it to you. And I'm sorry, who's this? What district are you from?
Garfield?
Okay, it should be there, but we'll double check it if it's
I
there.
have it. I have it.
You just open up the
Okay, we have
O-Drive
it.
and there should be a folder, documentation.
Dan, this is received from Elizabeth.
How you doing?
We just went into documentation. There's nothing in there.
Okay, we'll make sure it's there. We'll make sure it's there. I'll talk to Hector because they're really in control. So, I'll talk to Hector about it. We'll make sure we find some way of getting it to you. Okay?
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Anything else?
Dan, hi, it's Virginia.
Hi, Virginia.
Cinnamon, some Board of Ed.
Sure.
Good. Dan, we're pretty good. We're okay with the close, but we always and forever have a problem with the encumbrances. Sometimes
you
we
mean,
look,
the
it's not
reenters?
the, yeah. Well, I guess just on the balance sheet. We'll look at it and the encumbrances aren't there. Do we have to make the journal entry to put the encumbrances on? Because then sometimes they turn up double.
No, you don't have to
No,
do
we're just
any.
prior
You
year.
don't have to. You're talking about the reenters, right? That's the encumbers.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the encumber. No, you don't have to do anything. It would automatically post when you do your July posting. So you don't have to make a journal entry for that. Maybe that's
So we
what
don't
you're
have
doing.
to. All right. Well, let me try it. I don't know. We'll see, Tom.
Yeah, because
not here, as you know, so.
here's basically what happens with a reenter. In 1718, it cancels the order. So it closes the order
Right.
in 1718, and it creates it under the same account in 1819.
Right.
Okay, so
So that should be good. Yeah.
right, because what happens, it's a PO. It's like you manually
Right.
doing it. If you canceled it, and in 1819 you added that same PO number to the same account, okay,
Exactly.
and that's going to hit
And that's a
the journals and
reenter.
the ledgers when you post in July. So there's the liability
Right.
have to be in as a journal entry, which I think we do automatically.
Right.
You know
We
what I mean?
do that.
Yeah.
And what about accounts payable?
As far as
As accounts payable, sometimes we'll do all our close
well,
and then
that's
the payable
the liabilities. The liabilities is your prior year accounts payable.
right. And sometimes we'll run a report, balance sheet report, and it won't be on there. And then we'll do a journal entry, and then it's on there. That too is on there like twice. I don't know what we're doing, but do we have? We shouldn't have to do anything with the accounts payable, right?
Only if you
Other than marking it.
yeah, that's it for when you roll over.
Okay.
But in 1819, let's say you rolled it over as a liability, okay, and you paid less than what you rolled it over for. Let's say I rolled over a PO for 500, okay,
Right.
and we only paid 400 against it, okay.
That's going to sit in the account.
If you close that,
payable.
right, if you close that purchase order, it's not going to adjust the accounts payable. So that 100 is
Right.
still sitting there. So that's when you do a journal entry. You know what
And otherwise, we shouldn't have to do anything at the close on accounts payable.
No.
As far as other than marking them. That's what we thought.
Or,
okay,
like I say, in 1819, for the 1718, no, all you do is mark them. But for next year,
Right.
if you pay less or you pay more,
oh sure, yeah, I
that's not
keep track
gonna
of that.
that's not gonna adjust the accounts payable balance
Right.
sheet account. You had
I do
you
a
have to
journal
do.
entry. Right.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's not a problem either. Now, one more question: when we press the button to into the new year, when we want the balance sheet set up. Now, I know that if we have done journal entries, we then would have to do it manually.
Yes.
In the new year. But now tell me this, if is that all? If we have run recs in the new year,
No.
Will it manually still come up if we
Yes,
run
it'll
Rex
come
on the
over. The
3rd?
only time it won't, and I'll bring it up on the screen. The only time it won't run this program, we're talking out the build opening entries, right?
Right.
Okay. The only time it won't run is if you went into 1819 and did a manual journal entry, or you posted to Gap, then you won't be able to do this.
Gotcha.
Okay?
That's what I thought. Okay, perfect.
So those two things. Okay?
Thank you so much, Dan.
You're welcome, Virginia. You're welcome. Claudia, were you there? Claudia? Oh, no, that's right. She took off. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, if you come up with a question, we will send out the schedule for the June webinar.
Right.
Okay. But if you come up with any questions, don't hesitate to send us an email. You can email me at Dan, at edumet.com. We'll be glad to answer any questions. So, all righty.
All right. Have a good day, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.